Welcome to the DX Today podcast, where you get facts, not hype, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are taking on a topic that has fundamentally broken the old rules of information security.
It really has. It's redefined the meaning of enterprise risk.
Absolutely. Especially for those of you running small and medium-sized businesses, we're talking about a definitive moment, you could call it a rupture in the industry that many are referring to as the crossing of the AI Rubicon.
And that shift really, came to a head in 2025.
It did. So our mission for you today is laser-focused. We are synthesizing a whole stack of sources detailing how autonomous AI has created this new hyper-accelerated threat landscape.
And we're not just talking about the big guys.
No, not at all. We aren't just looking at how the Fortune 500 defend themselves. Our focus is specifically on what some call the digital economy's soft underbelly, small and medium-sized businesses.
The SMBs.
Exactly. Our goal is to extract a viable, resource-aware survival strategy that's tailored for the budget-conscious, time-constrained organization.
That phrase, the AI Rubicon, it's so critical because it really signifies a permanent, a non-reversible change in the whole cyber battlefield.
It's a one-way door.
It is. I mean, for the last 30 years, cybersecurity was, pretty straightforward. A human attacker using software tools against a human defender.
Right, a person versus a person.
That whole dynamic is now, it's mathematically obsolete.
Yeah.
And that's because of the shift to what we call Agentic AI.
And these aren't just better scripts, are they?
Oh, not even close. These are not just advanced scripts or, some machine learning algorithms. Agentic AI systems are autonomous.
Meaning they don't need a person driving them constantly.
Precisely. They don't need continuous human guidance to interpret feedback or decide what to do next. They can reason, they can plan, and they execute incredibly complex cyber operations with minimal, and in some really terrifying cases, zero human intervention.
So it's a fundamental replacement of human operational thinking.
With machine speed cognitive processing. Exactly.
And that profound technological leap has had an immediate and a very severe economic consequence, which is what our sources are calling the cyber poverty line.
That's a perfect term for it. It's more than just a phrase. It describes a strategic disparity that really threatens the stability of the entire supply chain.
How so?
Well, you have the large enterprises, the haves, and they're deploying these expensive, next-generation, AI-driven predictive immunity systems to counter these hypervelocity threats.
They can afford the talent, the infrastructure.
They can. But the have-nots, the SMBs, they're constrained by budget, a lack of specialized talent, and just overwhelming complexity. They're being left dangerously behind.
And the data, it really backs this up, doesn't it?
Oh, the data confirms this stark reality. It proves the asymmetry is an existential threat. Our sources show that a staggering 60% of companies believe they face an AI-enabled attack in just the past year. 60%.
That is a huge number. But what's the other side of that coin? The defense side.
That's the shocking part. Only 7% of organizations have successfully deployed AI-enabled defenses to fight back.
So wait, let me get this straight. 60% of the attacks are operating at machine speed.
And only 7% of the defenses. When you see that gap, you realize this is not a fair fight. It's a guaranteed resource exhaustion for the smaller player.
Which means we need to find that asymmetric advantage, something that can turn this statistic around for you, the listener.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about AI shifting the offense, the primary change, as you mentioned, it isn't just the sophistication of the attack itself.
No, it's a triad of factors.
It's that triad of velocity, scale, and autonomy. We're no longer dealing with, static malware or even human-paced decision-making.
The bottlenecks are gone.
They are. The adversary is now a continuously running, adaptive, probabilistic model that's capable of thinking its way through defenses faster than light. And that speed, it comes from the core capability of agentic AI operations. Just think about what a human attacker traditionally had to do. They'd run a script to scan a network, get the results back.
And then sit there and try to figure out what it all means.
Right. They would manually interpret the output. They'd see, for example, port 22 is blocked. Then they'd have to check a database for alternatives and then manually decide the next course of action, like trying a default password list on a different service.
It's a very deliberate, human-paced process.
It is. They were always operating within a decision-making model that was first formalized by the military strategist John Boyd, known as the OD Loop Observe, Orient, Decide, act.
A human-centric loop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even the fastest human analyst, pumped full of adrenaline, might take 30 seconds to observe a defensive failure, maybe a minute to orient themselves by checking docs, 2 minutes to decide on the next technique, and another minute to act. You're talking about a response cycle measured in minutes.
And Agentic AI just, deletes that time constraint entirely. This is the compressed OODA loop you mentioned.
Precisely. The system observes the defensive failure in milliseconds. It orients itself by analyzing the failure data against its vast knowledge base of successful exploits. It decides on a new approach, maybe even generating novel exploit code on the fly, and it acts, all at machine speed.
So the whole cycle takes place in, a second?
Often less than a single second. And this speed is why the human is no longer the foot soldier in these attacks.
The human is more like a manager now.
A campaign manager, exactly. Our sources indicate that AI agents are now performing between 80 and 90% of the total operational workload in contemporary campaigns. The human attacker just sets the initial parameters and, collects the loot.
And the AI does all the grunt work.
All the tedious, laborious, and most crucially, the reactive work scanning ports, enumerating users, mapping network topologies, and adapting to defensive maneuvers in real time.
That autonomy you mentioned is the key differentiator then. A traditional script just stops when it hits a wall.
It does.
Yeah.
An AI agent doesn't.
So how does it manage to dynamically adapt when it fails?
It uses advanced techniques similar to what we see in generative AI, known as chain of thought reasoning. So when the AI tries a line of attack and the defense succeeds, the agent doesn't just quit.
It asks itself why it failed.
Exactly. It runs a deep analysis. Why did that defense succeed? Was it a firewall rule? Was it a known patch? And based on that analysis, it reasons its way around the perimeter, attempting alternative, novel paths.
So if you block the first 5 attempts,
The AI might generate a sixth, completely unique approach that no human had the time to anticipate. It's a relentless, non-giving up adversary that has infinite patience and inhuman speed.
And the outcome of that speed is what really defines the new risk, especially for an SMB. We're talking about the execution speed just dropping to near zero. This metric, the mean time to exfiltrate, or MTTE, it's genuinely terrifying.
The drop in MTPE is probably the most visceral representation of this AI Rubicon. Back in 2021, the average time between an initial compromise and the final gold data theft or encryption was about 9 days.
9 days. That gave human defenders a window.
A huge window. It gave them days, even weeks, to spot the intrusion, triage the alerts, and mount a defense.
And by 2025,
that average plummeted to just 2 days. But the simulations show the true worst-case scenario.
this is the Unit 42 research, right?
It is. When Unit 42 simulated fully autonomous AI-driven ransomware attacks, they were completing the entire kill chain, from entry to data exfiltration in as little as 25 minutes.
25 minutes. That is unbelievable. That means by the time an SMB owner gets an initial notification, calls their outsourced IT company.
And that IT company logs in, triages the severity, decides who to call.
The data is not only encrypted, but it's probably already been stolen, and the ransom note has been posted.
It creates a mathematical certainty of failure for any organization relying on traditional, human-centric security teams that only work during business hours.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. We just talked about this high-end, almost nation-state level capability to get that 25-minute speed. But the sources show us the barrier to entry for this kind of cybercrime has essentially collapsed.
It has, thanks to the rise of bad GPTs.
So this kind of speed is now in the hands of, petty criminals.
This is the true democratization of sophistication. It used to be that a high-quality, zero-day exploit or sophisticated polymorphic malware required a team of highly paid, specialized coders.
A huge investment.
A huge investment. Now, thanks to these malicious large language models, any criminal with a credit card and basic computer literacy can access tools that rival state-sponsored capabilities.
So what's different about these bad GPTs? Why can't you just use ChatGPT to write malware?
Because the legitimate models like ChatGPT or Claude, they have ethical guardrails. They use reinforcement learning from human feedback to prevent them from writing malware or generating phishing kits. Bad GPTs have explicitly removed those constraints.
They're trained on the bad stuff.
Exactly. They're fine-tuned on malware repositories, exploit databases, dark web forums, explicitly for the purpose of crime.
So let's talk specifics. What are the economics here? What does this kind of power cost?
The pricing is almost offensive, given the power they grant. Take WormGPT. This platform is specialized in creating highly evasive polymorphic malware. It can autonomously write sophisticated Python scripts for keylogging, encryption, remote access.
And its main selling point is no rules.
No ethical boundaries, that's the advertisement.
Yeah.
And it generates code that is clean and ready to deploy. The pricing is alarmingly low for the destructive power it grants, around 60 to 100 euros per month.
100 euros. That's a disposable budget for nearly any organized crime group. It's less than a decent monthly streaming bundle.
Exactly. The capability that once required a minimum of a six-figure salary for a specialized coder is now available for pocket change. The economic model of cybercrime has been fundamentally inverted.
And it's not just about malware, is it? What's FraudGPT?
FraudGPT doesn't focus on the technical exploits. It focuses on social engineering, which, the soft underbelly of most SMBs. It crafts incredibly convincing phishing emails, generates realistic phishing pages that perfectly mimic major banks or IT service providers.
And helps find credential dumps.
Right. It aids in identifying new leak sites where stolen credentials are sold. Its pricing is a bit higher, around $200 a month or $1,700 a year, reflecting its specialized value in high-yield financial fraud.
These tools turn an unskilled criminal into a professional cyber fraudster overnight.
That's the danger.
And the technical implication of this is the creation of polymorphic malware. This seems to be where the speed and cost really hit the SMB the hardest. Can you break down why this is so dangerous for a company that might be relying on older, cheaper defenses?
It fundamentally breaks traditional security detection methods. It forces a financial upgrade that most SMBs just cannot afford.
What's the core mechanical difference?
Well, legacy antivirus, which many SMBs still rely on, operates on signatures. Think of a bank robber who always leaves the same unique fingerprint, the signature or hash, at every crime scene. The police database identifies that unique fingerprint and arrests him the next time he shows up.
Simple enough. So what does polymorphic malware do?
Polymorphic malware is the bank robber who changes his mask, his hat, his clothing, even his gait every single time he enters a bank.
Yeah.
The AI, powered by something like WormGPT, rewrites the underlying code of the virus every time it's deployed.
It changes its fingerprint?
It changes its fingerprint, its hash, and its internal structure while maintaining its malicious function. A single strain of ransomware can be recompiled millions of times a day, and every single iteration looks mathematically unique to signature-based detection.
So the defender is forced to abandon the cheap method, checking the fingerprint, and instead invest heavily in expensive, resource-intensive behavioral analysis.
That's the heavy toll of democratization. Behavioral analysis requires sophisticated computing power, dedicated logs, expensive AI-powered platforms like UEBA, and specialized human analysts to tune it. It's what forces you across that cyber poverty line.
It weaponizes uniqueness.
It does. It demands an immediate and costly infrastructure upgrade just to maintain the same defense capability you had 5 years ago. And this is why it's so critical for the smaller player to adopt the asymmetric, low-cost defenses we'll get into later.
While those technical exploits are terrifying, the psychological vector social engineering has been dramatically enhanced. This is especially true for organizations that rely on human trust and informal protocols.
Or absolutely. The core threat here is the total collapse of the notion of trust but verify.
Because the verification mechanisms themselves are now compromised.
We've moved way beyond simple phishing emails. We're into hyper-realistic synthetic media being operationally deployed for massive fraud. The prime example, and the one that everyone in security has been studying intensely, is the Arup deepfake case.
This one was a real wake-up call.
A huge one. This happened in early 2024. An employee in Arup's Hong Kong office was initially targeted by a suspicious phishing email. Now, to the employee's credit, they were skeptical. They had the right training.
But the attackers knew the email wouldn't be enough.
They knew. So they escalated the attack, using synthetic media to just crush that suspicion.
Walk us through the sequence of events, because the mechanism of this attack is what makes it so revolutionary. It wasn't just a pre-recorded voice note.
No, that's the key. It involved real-time interaction. To overcome the employee's suspicion about this massive wire transfer request, the attackers initiated a video conference call.
And here's the game-changing detail.
Here it is. Every single other participant on that call, including the company's CFO and multiple senior executives, was an AI-generated deepfake.
Not just one person, but the whole leadership team.
The whole team. And these were not static avatars. They were interactive. They were capable of nodding, reacting, and most importantly, responding to the employee's questions in real time about the transaction.
So the employee is on a video call with what looks and sounds like their entire senior leadership team, all confirming this urgent confidential transfer request.
And that visual and auditory evidence of authority, the consensus of multiple senior leaders, it completely overwhelmed the employees' skepticism. The result: they bypassed standard financial checks and executed 15 transfers.
Totaling
A staggering $25 million.
$25 million lost because of a convincing Zoom meeting. That single case proves that deepfakes are no longer a theoretical threat for election interference. They are a multi-million-dollar operational reality targeting corporate finance.
And for the SMB listener, while $25 million might seem remote, the concept scales down perfectly. A loss of $25,000 or even $250,000 to a similar attack is often enough to bankrupt a small business.
That psychological warfare brings us to a term I find particularly insidious and one that SMBs have to prepare for: vibe hacking.
It's more than just a deepfake video or a well-written email. It's about exploiting the deep contextual trust inside an organization.
Is the AI actually learning to be deceitful, or is it just generating better grammar? What is the mechanism behind vibe hacking?
It's the latter, but taken to an exponential level. Agentic AI becomes the perfect psychological manipulator because it studies the target before it engages. It analyzes a compromised inbox, and remember, finding those inboxes is simple with tools like FraudGPT, and it learns.
It learns the vibe.
Exactly. It learns the account holder's specific tone, their internal jargon, their unique sign-off phrases, their historical writing style. It learns the vibe of the target's communication.
And then it performs what's called thread hijacking.
Right. Instead of sending a suspicious cold email, the AI seamlessly inserts itself into an existing routine email conversation about, say, Q4 budgets or a client meeting. The AI makes these routine-looking requests, like approving a final invoice or updating banking details for a vendor, that appear completely normal and contextually appropriate within that existing thread.
So the human mind is trained to spot anomalies in content. The Nigerian prince email. But if the AI eliminates the content anomaly by using perfect context and tone,
the human defense system goes blind.
The recipient is focused on the known context of the thread. Oh, Bob already knows about this project, so this transfer must be legit.
Precisely. They don't register the red flag.
Yeah.
The psychological barrier is just destroyed by contextual relevance that's engineered at machine speed.
Okay, beyond deceiving people, AI is also revolutionizing how technical targets are identified in the first place.
Yeah.
Let's shift back to the technical front and talk vulnerability discovery. How has AI changed the speed at which unknown flaws are found?
This is the machine speed hunt for unknown flaws, what we often call 0 days. Attackers are using AI-driven automated fuzzing tools.
Explain fuzzing for us.
Fuzzing is essentially just generating millions of random malformed inputs to test software for unexpected crashes or errors. A human tester might run a few thousand inputs overnight.
And an AI.
An AI does this at a scale and intelligence level that human testers simply cannot match. It automatically identifies code paths that lead to exploitation. This is leading to a revolution in 0-day discovery.
Meaning the software you rely on, your cloud tools, your HR system, will have its flaws exposed faster than ever before.
Exactly. But perhaps the quietest yet most persistently dangerous threat is how agentic AI hunts for non-human identities, or NHIs.
These are things like API keys, service accounts.
That's right, authentication tokens that enable machine-to-machine communication. And they're often left unsecured or improperly managed in source code repositories or cloud configurations.
And I can see how an AI agent, which is basically a software scout, would be perfectly suited to finding these. Why are they such a critical access vector?
Because they're the forgotten keys to the kingdom. They are silent access vectors. Agentic AI is adept at finding them because they're just static pieces of text and large data sets. Once they're compromised, they provide persistent, silent access to sensitive data and systems.
And here's the crucial part.
They completely bypass human-centric controls like multi-factor authentication, MFA, because they are designed for machine interaction. They don't need a token from your phone. They're always on, always accessible, and often go unmonitored for years.
So if an SMB relies heavily on cloud services or has external vendor APIs,
these NHIs are a massive exposed target for autonomous agents.
So what does this all mean? The threats are hyper-accelerated, they're autonomous, they're psychologically convincing. The analysis is sobering, to say the least.
It is. But the good news is that AI is also the most potent shield we have.
Right. We need to understand how the defense is shifting from reactive detecting a breach hours or days after it happens to predictive, identifying the precursors of an attack before the data even moves.
That pivot to predictive capability is everything. The traditional security model was based on deterministic rules. If a known bad file hash appears, block it. If an IP address is on a blacklist, block it.
That model is dead.
It is. It's dead in the age of polymorphic malware. AI introduces a probabilistic defense. It looks at the totality of behavior and makes a judgment call on risk.
And the primary tool here is UEBA.
User and entity behavior analytics. Exactly. Machine learning establishes this complex baseline of normal activity for every single user, every device, every server on the network. And this baseline is incredibly nuanced. It factors in dozens of data points.
Can you give us a concrete, detailed example of how that baseline functions to defeat a successful credential theft? Because that's so common now.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Let's imagine the AI learns that user A, who works in marketing, typically logs in from the Chicago office's IP address. She accesses specific CRM folders and normally transfers about 10 megabytes of data daily between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
That's the normal baseline, her digital fingerprint of behavior.
Right. Now, an AI-driven attack steals user A's legitimate credentials, username, and password. The traditional firewall sees valid login credentials and allows access.
But the UEV system sees something different.
It sees several critical deviations at the same time. It sees a login from a new, unexpected geolocation, like Lagos or Eastern Europe. It sees a completely different time of day, say 3 a.m. local time. It observes a deviation in the data access pattern. Instead of the CRM, the user is immediately looking at HR salary files. And finally, there's a massive deviation in data volume.
The user tries to download 50 gigabytes of data.
Exactly. The AI correlates these 4 deviations, time, location, data volume, and sequence of actions, and flags this probabilistic cluster as a critical threat, even though the credentials are 100% valid.
And that behavioral approach is the only reliable way to detect this.
It's the only way.
That's powerful because it anticipates the crime based on the deviation from the norm, rather than reacting to a known piece of malware, which leads directly to predictive forecasting. How does AI use this behavior baseline to look forward?
Well, predictive platforms leverage these massive global threat intelligence feeds. The AI doesn't just look at your network. It looks at attacks happening globally and in your specific vertical.
So it learns from what's happening to others.
It does. For instance, if the AI detects a new aggressive strain of ransomware, specifically targeting healthcare providers in, say, Texas, using a known exploit, it can take immediate preemptive action for all its healthcare clients globally.
How does it do that?
The AI can automatically generate and push new preemptive security policies, maybe restricting remote access to certain ports entirely, or isolating critical servers for all its healthcare clients in neighboring states or even worldwide.
So it creates a form of proactive regional herd immunity.
That's a great way to put it. It allows you to build defenses against a threat you haven't even encountered yet, simply because your peers have.
Now, in any security operations center or SOC, the biggest problem for the human staff is alert fatigue. You have thousands of false positives just drowning out the real threats. How does AI help manage that overwhelming volume?
That is where automated incident response, or SOAR, platforms come in. OSAR stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Think of it as the AI doing the heavy intellectual lifting of correlation. A human analyst might look at 10,000 logs a day.
And see them as individual events.
Exactly. The AI analyzes and correlates those alerts. For example, a single low-priority phishing email alert on user A's desktop might not seem like a big deal. A suspicious login from an unusual IP is another low-priority alert. A failed file access attempt is a third.
A human might see those 3 things separately.
Right. The AI, however, links all 3 together. It identifies them as stages of the same attack chain within seconds. It connects the dots that a human analyst might take hours to assemble, and then instantly prioritizes that correlation as a genuine high-severity threat.
So it's not just reducing the number of alerts, it's giving them context and severity scoring based on the full attack narrative. And what about actually containing the threat, given that we established the MTTE can be as low as 25 minutes?
Speed is everything. In a confirmed high-severity event, like a ransomware infection, the AI can perform autonomous containment. If the system detects the unique behavior of an encryption event, that massive rapid file renaming and resaving, the AI can autonomously isolate the infected endpoint from the rest of the network immediately.
And that happens faster than a human could even open the ticket.
Much faster. It stops the lateral movement and spread of the threat. When the threat moves at machine speed, the defense must also be machine speed.
We've spent a lot of time on the attacker AI being used for malicious code generation. To close out the defensive capabilities briefly, where are defenders using AI offensively?
It's known as offensive defense or purple teaming. Defenders use AI to attack their own systems to find weaknesses before the criminals do.
Using tools like Pentest plus A.
All right, Pentest uses LLMs to automate ethical hacking. It performs reconnaissance, identifies weak port configurations, scans for known flaws, and suggests specific exploit vectors. This gives defenders an immediate, automated roadmap to patch holes that automated agents would otherwise find first.
And what about defending the AI itself?
That's crucial. As organizations deploy their own large language models internally for customer service or code development, tools like Arup, the generative AI red teaming and assessment kit, are used to red team the LLMs themselves.
So you're basically hacking your own AI.
You are. You're testing the models for prompt injection attacks or attempts at jailbreaking to ensure the internal AI doesn't leak sensitive corporate data or produce harmful, unintended content. It's a necessary security layer for the AI itself, ensuring our tools aren't turned against us.
This all brings us back to the biggest, most critical problem for our core audience, that widening gap between the haves and have-nots, the cyber poverty line. The technical solutions are clearly essential, but implementing them is incredibly expensive.
It is.
So why is this disparity so critical for the average small business that thinks I'm too small to be a target?
That is the most dangerous assumption an SMB can make. They are not too small, they're the low-hanging fruit, and they are targeted for two primary undeniable reasons.
What's the first one?
First is supply chain entry, or island hopping. Large enterprises, your clients, your partners, have poured billions into hardening their own perimeters. Direct attacks are difficult and expensive.
So the attackers pivot.
They pivot. They use the smaller, less protected vendors, the HVAC contractors with network access, the specialized law firms, the marketing agencies, to gain credentials or internal network access that allows them to pivot into the larger target network. You might not be the primary target, but you are the easiest, most valuable way in.
And the second reason?
Second, and this is the mathematical truth we established, is the sheer resource asymmetry. A small business with a two-person IT team or relying on a generalist managed service provider just cannot compete with an AI agent launching thousands of unique, personalized phishing attempts every hour.
They're playing defense at human speed.
While the adversary is operating autonomously at machine speed, the defense line is thin and the attack surface is vast, making SMBs the most cost-effective target for automated criminal enterprises.
Let's detail those specific resource gaps. We mentioned talent, infrastructure, and culture.
Absolutely. Let's start with the talent problem, which is severe enough on its own. The global shortage of cybersecurity professionals is bad, but the shortage of AI-literate security talent is catastrophic. Our sources state that 69% of organizations report difficulty in hiring AI cybersecurity experts.
And SMBs just can't compete for that talent pool.
They can't possibly compete with the seven-figure salaries these experts command at large tech firms. You're competing for a resource pool that is completely out of reach.
And compounding this is the issue of shadow AI.
Yes. This is a subtle, non-technical risk that creates massive data leakage. Employees, often at smaller firms with less rigid oversight, are using public AI services like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude for work. They're pasting proprietary information. Everything from unreleased marketing copy and client lists to lines of proprietary code into these public models.
For analysis or drafting or debugging.
Exactly. Our sources show that 15% of employees routinely access public AI services on corporate devices, often without any review.
That's essentially training the public internet on your private, sensitive data. You're using an AI to make your work easier, but at the cost of providing ammunition to the next AI attacker.
That's it precisely. The employee sees efficiency, the security expert sees massive, unmonitored data leakage, creating new intelligence for the next wave of vibe hacking campaigns.
Now let's talk about infrastructure limitations. If an open source security tool like a SIEM is free, why can't a small business just deploy it to get these security benefits?
Because the software might be free, but the hardware, and especially the labor, is not. Take the example of running an open-source SIEM like Wazoo. That requires substantial dedicated resources just to handle the data. For just 100 endpoints, a typical small office, you need a dedicated server with at least 8 GBs of RAM and 4 virtual CPUs for minimal functionality.
That's a capital investment right there.
It is. But the true blocker, the reason most free tools fail in an SMB context, is the hidden labor cost. Installing the hardware is the easy part. Tuning a SIEM, the process of filtering out millions of false positives, correlating alerts, and ensuring it stops alerting on normal behavior, can take weeks, often months, of dedicated labor from a specialized IT generalist.
And that labor cost is far more than just buying a managed service.
Often far more expensive. The cost isn't the software license, it's the specialized time required to run it effectively.
And finally, let's go back to the human element, the social engineering susceptibility. Why are small firms uniquely vulnerable to the deepfake calls and vibe hacking we saw in the Arup case?
It really comes down to trust and process informality. In a large corporation, a $5,000 wire transfer requires rigid, auditable processes, dual signatures, approvals from 3 different managers.
It's designed to defeat a single point of failure.
Exactly. But in a small business, the request often comes from the CEO, who is frequently the owner and the final word. The staff relies on an informal, high-trust network.
A request from the owner is rarely questioned.
Right. If an AI deepfake of the owner calls the bookkeeper is trained to respond immediately to that voice of authority. That informality is the exact vector that AI phishing and deepfake technology are designed to exploit, leading to instantaneous financial loss.
The situation is clearly alarming, but the sources aren't just, fear-mongering. They are providing a way out. The strategy for the resource constraint cannot be fighting fire with fire.
No, it has to be an asymmetric defense.
One that focuses on the highest return on security investment, or RSI. We need to find the solutions that achieve 80% of the security for 20% of the cost.
Correct. The core philosophy of asymmetric defense is simple. The goal is to raise the cost and complexity of the attack just high enough so that automated AI agents skip your organization and move on to an easier target.
And for most SMBs, building an internal security operations center, a SOC, is financially impossible.
It is. Therefore, outsourcing 24/7 monitoring via Managed Detection and Response, or MDR, is the critical technical layer for endpoint protection.
That sounds like a great solution, but let's be honest, even $5 an endpoint is a tax on an already strained IT budget. How does an SMB navigate the MDR market and justify that expense?
You have to understand the market bifurcation. The enterprise gold standard, like CrowdStrike Falcon Complete, provides fantastic security, but can easily cost $15 or more per endpoint per month.
That's out of reach for a 100-person firm.
Absolutely. So we need SMB-focused solutions that provide that 247 human threat hunting and AI correlation for a fraction of that cost. Our analysis points to Huntress as a dominant and strategically sound player in this space.
And the pricing there is
Often around $4 to $5 per endpoint per month. And its strategic value is key because of what it doesn't do. It doesn't force you to buy a redundant antivirus engine. It augments the native Windows Defender, which is already free on your Windows machine.
So you're only paying for the layer you lack.
Exactly. You avoid paying for a full proprietary EDR suite and only pay for the critical layer you lack, 247 human and AI threat hunting. It manages your built-in Microsoft antivirus while adding a crucial layer of human threat hunters. It's the highest RSI for endpoint security.
That's actionable advice. Now let's talk about the absolutely essential, most cost-effective layer, the one that requires zero hardware, zero labor tuning, and protects the entire network perimeter in milliseconds.
This is the 80% of security for 0% of the capital cost.
This is a no-brainer.
It is. This is AI-driven DNS filtering. It's the fundamental first line of defense that every single listener should implement immediately. The domain name system, DNS, is the Internet's phone book. It translates website names into IP addresses.
And DNS filtering blocks the bad stuff at the source.
It blocks malware, phishing sites, and crucial command and control callbacks at the network edge in milliseconds. Modern filters use AI to categorize new malicious domains instantly, which is vital against the burner domains rapidly generated by AI phishing campaigns.
So if a user clicks a bad link,
the DNS filter intercepts the request to contact the command server before the connection is even established and blocks it.
this sounds like something every organization should implement today. Are there truly affordable or even free options that provide this level of protection?
Absolutely. There are no excuses not to deploy this. Quad9 is a fantastic, nonprofit, free, privacy-focused service that uses threat intelligence from over 25 providers. Immediate implementation requires only changing the DNS settings on your router or endpoints. Zero cost, minimal time.
And if you want more customizability?
If you want more customizability, NextDNS is highly regarded. It offers an excellent free tier and is only about $20 per year for a personalized setup. Implementing one of these is the single most effective low-cost step you can take.
So we have the technical layers, MDR for endpoints, DNS filtering for the perimeter. But if AI can bypass software, the final layer, and perhaps the most important defense against social engineering, has to be the human firewall.
It does. Training must move beyond "don't click suspicious links" to how to defeat an AI operating in real time under conditions of high trust. The core protocol here is the Out-of-Band Authentication Protocol, or OOB.
And this is the critical non-technical defense against deepfakes and vibe hacking.
It is. If an employee receives a sensitive request, a wire transfer, a file release, a credential change via channel A, like an email or a video call, they must verify that request via a separate, known channel B.
Like a phone call to a known number.
Or an encrypted, pre-established chat channel. The request cannot be authorized on the same channel it was delivered on. It completely breaks the AI's ability to use a single, compromised channel for both deception and authorization.
And our sources give a great anecdote illustrating this, the Ferrari executive anecdote.
A perfect illustration of the asymmetric advantage of human context. A high-level executive at Ferrari was targeted by a sophisticated deepfake voice clone of a senior colleague. The voice was perfect, the tone was urgent, the request was immediate.
The executive was suspicious.
He was. But instead of arguing about the transfer, he used a critical piece of shared, non-public context. He asked the deepfake colleague a specific private question about a book recommendation they had discussed previously at a dinner party.
And the AI couldn't answer.
It couldn't. It only had compromised communications and public data to draw from. It lacked this specific private context. The fraud was revealed, the transaction was frozen, all with a single, simple question.
So this provides a robust model for the SMB listener. Establish internal safe words or unique challenge questions that an AI can't know.
Yes, and they should be rotated quarterly, or whenever a major personnel change occurs. Only key financial, executive, and HR staff need to know the question and the answer.
And the question must be based on shared, private, non-digital context.
Something like, what was the name of the restaurant we went to after the last conference in Chicago? Or what specific tie did I wear to the holiday party last year? Questions that rely on shared physical presence or memory, not compromised email history. This human barrier is the most difficult one for an AI to bypass.
So beyond safe words, you need a defined deepfake incident response plan.
You do. Train staff to spot the subtle glitches, unnatural blinking, poor audio sync. And critically, train them to recognize and resist urgent emotional manipulation. Attackers use urgency to bypass critical thinking. The protocol is simple. If you're suspicious, freeze the transaction and execute the OOB protocol.
Financial risk transfer is that final layer of defense, but we can't afford to be complacent about the fine print in these policies. They're getting incredibly complicated.
They are. Cyber insurance is mandatory today, but navigating the exclusion clauses is vital to preserve coverage. Insurers have been burned by massive losses and are tightening the language, particularly around two concepts: silent cyber and nation-state attacks.
So what do SMBs need to watch out for?
The LMA 5400 clause, the property, cyber, and data exclusion. This clause explicitly excludes general cyber laws from standard property policies unless that coverage is specifically written back in.
So let's use a real-world scenario. If an AI agent hacks the HVAC system, causing the server room to overheat and catch fire, what happens?
This is the exact situation LMA 5400 addresses. A standard property policy will likely deny the claim, arguing the root cause was a cyber event, the hack, not a covered peril like fire.
So you need a specific write-back.
You need a write-back for ensuing fire. You need language that says losses resulting from fire originating from a malicious cyber event will be covered. That specific nuance is the difference between survival and bankruptcy.
And even more concerning is the LMA 5630, the war exclusion.
It is. With AI-driven campaigns being launched or sponsored by nation-states, insurers are tightening this clause to exclude coverage for losses arising from war or cyber operations that are part of a war.
That seems like an impossible burden for an innocent SMB. If my local coffee shop is hit by collateral damage from a worm launched by a foreign government.
The insurer could deny the claim. They could invoke LMA 5630, argue the attack was an act of war, and deny coverage, even if you were just collateral damage. The SMB has no control over geopolitics, yet they bear the risk.
So what's the actionable advice here?
SMBs must work with their brokers to negotiate for carve-backs in these war exclusions. You need to ensure the policy preserves coverage for collateral damage or cyber terrorism. You cannot afford to be left uninsured because of an insurer's fear of massive, systemic, nation-state-driven losses.
This has been a necessary, if intensely sobering, deep dive. For you, the learner, the key takeaway is that resilience in the age of agentic AI is a function of strategy and discipline, not just budget.
That's right. The traditional defensive methods have been outpaced by machine speed, but the solutions are available provided you choose those high-ROI tactics.
I agree completely.
In this new asymmetric frontier, the greatest risk for any organization, regardless of its size, is complacency. The future belongs only to those who possess the most adaptable mindsets and who recognize that the speed of the adversary demands a proactive, defensive posture.
The realization that the cheapest defenses, DNS filtering, and human protocols are now the most vital layers is the surprising pivot we all have to embrace.
It is.
Absolutely. So considering the collapse of the barrier to entry due to bad GPTs and the incredibly sophisticated deception methods now available, here is the final provocative thought for you to take away. What specific non-technical safe word or personal context could you establish today with your own colleagues, clients, or family? By deciding on that one piece of shared private context, you create a human barrier that an AI cannot penetrate, allowing you to instantly defeat a real-time deepfake call requesting sensitive action. That is your new, most important security protocol.